Like, I straight up told him, I was like, if anyone that I had actually talked to, anyone that I like quote unquote debated or whatever, treated me like the way you did, I would never, ever in a million years allow that. Like, I would never allow that to happen. And if you're having that energy with me, someone, you know, you love, your nephew, then yeah, I'm assuming you carry that energy with a lot of people you don't know that well, who don't have that familial relationship. And yeah, that breeds resentment, that breeds anger.
Hasan Piker reflected on the Thanksgiving Day debate that he had with his uncle, Cenk Uygur, about the left and who really is the left. Some are calling it Jenksgiving. I'm going to play some clips of Hasan Piker talking about this debate. I will share my thoughts about this also. Let's check this out together.
I had a conversation with him because he was like, why do you think, because you know, we were talking about like why CNN and all these other like traditional outlets are more receptive to what I have to say than him. And he always thinks it's because I'm hot and young and cool and hip. And he's not. He's old and rugged. And I was like, no, dude, it's because of the way you carry yourself. Like, I have my criticisms of mainstream outlets all the time. I have my criticisms of other commentators. I have my disagreements with them. But like the energy that you bring to any conversation, including someone like myself who loves you, like I straight up told him, I was like, if anyone that I had actually talked to, anyone that I like quote unquote debated or whatever, treated me like the way you did, I would never, ever in a million years allow that. Like, I would never allow that to happen. And if you're having that energy with me, someone, you know, you love, your nephew, then yeah, I'm assuming you carry that energy with a lot of people you don't know that well, who don't have that familial relationship. And yeah, that breeds resentment, that breeds anger. And it's like overall very unnecessary, you know? And I think he got that. He understood that a little bit. Cause I was like, I basically was like, listen, I would never allow another person to talk to me like the way you talk to me. And of course, it doesn't mean anything between you and I because, you know, you've seen me shit in my diapers, okay? Like, you're my uncle, I love you, but, you know, if you're doing that to me, I'm assuming you do that to other people as well. And yeah, they probably don't like that. This was after dinner, yeah. I think
one thing that Hasan says here that I think is really relevant, and, you know, people can say whatever they think about the relationship between Hasan Piker and Cenk Uygur and the other people at the Young Turks, like Anna Kasparian, if they're jealous of him and all that kind of stuff. And he addresses this later in the clip here. But nobody on the outside knows better what's going on between them than they do themselves. And Hasan says here that there's no problem between them, that he loves Cenk. And so I think you can put that aside. You know, people want to place all their drama on these people that they don't know. I don't know any of these people personally that I cover in these videos, so I can just speculate about things. But when Hasan Piker is saying that he loves Cenk and there's no real problem between them, I am going to accept that more than anybody on the outside what their opinions are. I do think that Hasan is right about Cenk's behavior, that if you watch that debate between them, and I have clips of it on my channel, or you can go to any of Hasan's channels and watch it, and Cenk just comes off as completely unhinged. He's ranting and raving and talking about how he's the left and all of that. And I think Hasan is right that, you know, that can be entertaining, particularly on a show like Piers Morgan, where he seems to feed off of that, people just talking over themselves and all of that. But that's not really going to work very well on an MSNBC or a CNN, to have somebody like Cenk Uygur just yelling and screaming and ranting and raving. And that's what he did in the debate with Hasan.
The thing about Cenk is that he's not like, I don't think a grifter implies that there isn't like a genuine attitude change. Okay. I think he's just like genuinely has a difference in opinion in the issues that he speaks on, where he's like legitimately more conservative on those issues. Whether it happened over the course of the last couple of years, but I don't know if it happened like super fast. But I think that there has been an attitude shift. And I basically tried to get him to come to that conclusion. Like, I tried to walk through the steps slowly but surely by being like, there was a point where you were a fighter. You've always been a progressive fighter, right? You did not worry yourself about like what the democratic wishes of the base of support in the party looks like. You don't worry about that when it comes to Medicare for all, because you know that's right. And you know that if you champion that message, then like people will inevitably come on board with that. But it seems like for a lot of these other issues, you're willing to cast aside certain groups in the way that you communicate about these issues because you're terrified of the fact that there is no solution that the Democratic Party will offer them. And I think there is a crisis here born out of nihilism, born out of being a progressive champion for 25 plus years, as Cenk has been, where he is basically throughout time recognized that like no solutions are coming, no broad sweeping solutions that will tackle the issue exactly at the root cause, you know, fixing the housing market, adding additional social safety nets, after school programs and the like. So he's like, we have to stop the bleeding. And the only way to stop the bleeding is by being even more aggressive and being even more violent in our penalties. And that in and of itself is a terrifying prospect. That's when you cave to the reactionary in your mind, when you give in, and it's kind of terrifying. I think he envies you and it's poisonous. You're ridiculous, dude. That's my uncle. He does not envy me. He is very proud and very happy for my success. That's crazy.
Douchebags are right. We
can
need to protect every trans person should get free surgery.
We got
even in China. Even though we don't have nothing to do with China,
you gotta
we
stop.
hate them. They're
You gotta okay.
I mean, I'm 100% right. Every dirtbag show did it.
You gotta calm
Every
down.
dirtbag show did it. Tell me I'm wrong.
This is reframing an issue that is now we've moved away from the electoral consequences of a trans ad to your own personal anger and frustration that you have with left-wing media online.
Look, the idiots are making everyone think they are the left. They're like, we're the left, we're the real left. Okay, we are super extreme. We want free surgeries for every criminal. Yes, we're the left. And
yeah, I just don't think that this is like, I think no one in this no one that was mentioned in this conversation has any real motion whatsoever in moving the needle. Like, no disrespect to anybody, you know, Lance and the Serfs, Majority Report, myself, or the Young Turks. Like, even together, we have no motion. The most motion that Cenk ever had was with the Justice Democrats, right? Alongside Kyle Kalinske. And that wasn't because of the massive audiences that they had. That was because they were actually, like the Working Families Party or the DSA in certain instances, like successfully moving the Democratic Party in the correct direction. That's what...
So I want to stop here again and address a couple of things that Hasan says. Now, as far as the talk of Cenk Uygur being jealous of Hasan's success, and he flatly says no, flatly denies that and says he's my uncle, he loves me, he's happy for my success, so that's nonsense. So you have to take that as the truth when Hasan is saying that himself. Again, all of these people on the outside who don't really know these people and claim that Cenk is jealous of Hasan, Hasan says that's nonsense. So to me, you have to accept that. Now, he doesn't talk about Ana Kasparian here. A lot of people believe that Ana Kasparian is jealous of Hasan, and who knows? Maybe, I don't know if he's addressed that in other videos. I don't know if he'll address that later, but in this specific video, he's not talking about Ana Kasparian. He's just talking about Cenk Uygur and saying that there's no jealousy or animosity there. So to me, I accept that. I don't know if other people want to do that. That's their prerogative to accept it or not. In terms of the different left-wing commentators and YouTube channels and all the rest, I think Cenk was really off base when he says he's the left. To have one person claim to speak for an entire political movement or an entire group of people, I think is absolutely insane. And one of the problems that we're seeing right now, in my opinion, is instead of these channels like the Young Turks and the Majority Report getting together and joining forces to fight against the left, we have the typical team mentality that we seem to have with everything in our society, where it's Coke versus Pepsi, Ford versus Chevy, Xbox versus PlayStation, where if someone likes the Young Turks, then that means that they hate the Majority Report. And if they like the Majority Report, they hate the Young Turks. I've been watching and listening to these channels for years, and I think all of them have things to offer. There are things that I like about the Young Turks, the Majority Report, Hasan's channel, Kyle Kalinske, Francesca Fiorentini's The Bituation Room. Does that mean I agree with all of them? No. But I don't think there's anything wrong with when you are a person on the left or you're progressive or however you want to describe yourself with going to different sources for opinions and news and commentary. I don't think you have to be on one team and then hate everybody else. And there seems to be plenty of room on YouTube and other platforms for progressive commentators and progressive media. So to me, Cenk claiming to be the single source of the left is insanity. And that really hurts him.
Brought us the squad, right? And it came only because of, that progressive swing also happened because of Bernie Sanders too, which opened up the floodgates for that kind of communication. Yeah, Sunrise Movement too. And I think like getting lost in the minutia of online commentary stuff is silly. I don't know. It's just not good. It's not good. It's not smart. American culture was far more left during FDR and earlier. Yeah, on certain aspects, you're right. On like adjusted to its time, on economic improvements, yes. But obviously, socially speaking, no. There were a lot of progressive policies that were implemented in terms of economic policies, but there was also a shit ton of reactionary policies that were also implemented for marginalized populations. I grew up watching Jake in high school, and it was a major influence on me politically, but I became totally disillusioned in 2016 and disengaged until I found your commentary. It feels like I outgrew TYT. I mean, maybe. I think that these guys also think that like there is a real amount of like audience capture that like those who are on the hyper left, woke left, whatever the you want to call it, people like myself engage in. They can't comprehend that like I genuinely don't give a shit about trans people participating with cis people in athletic competition. Like I just don't care. And not only do I not care, but I also understand exactly where that anger and resentment comes from. And it's weird because like they also understand where that anger and resentment comes from. Like, yeah, so I'm not going to play along with that, you know? And I think every time you even have that conversation, whether in defense of it or whether you are there to like showcase how rational you are as opposed to these like crazies on the left or whatever, you're basically giving it more legitimacy. You're giving it more air. And I don't think that it's necessary other than talk about how silly and insidious and ridiculous these bills are, these anti-trans bills are, by pointing to the madness of it all. I think that in and of itself is a much more successful strategy, like of deflection. I just don't understand why people can't see it the way that I do. And it's my fault. I should be able to communicate this a little bit better than I have. And I don't think I've done a good enough job. Every step of the way, there is going to be people that are not going to agree with whatever progress that you want to implement, right? People don't like change. That's a stable thing, okay? People love stability and hate change. I think it's our job as progressives to communicate why these things are, these attacks are silly, or why these things are not a bad thing at all. Why these policy measures are not bad at all.
And the last point here, I want to agree with Hasan Piker on this as well. I think he's right. I agree. I do not care about trans people in sports. I don't think it's a real pressing issue in our society. It would be number 1,000 on the list or 10,000. There are so many other more important things than this. And right-wingers want to act like every school in America has a trans, a boy trying to play on the girls' volleyball team and getting in the girls' locker room like it's an 80s sex comedy or something like that. It's insanity. It's not that widespread. The state of Ohio had a bill that was written, I don't know if it passed, but an anti-trans bill that affected one kid. It was based on one student in the entire state of Ohio. That's insanity to me. And I think progressives like Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks have allowed the right wing to frame this policy, this controversy, to make it seem like it's much bigger than it is and a much more serious problem than it is. And I think, like Hasan Piker is saying here, that it's silly. It's silly for people on the left to get all worked up about trans people in sports. I know that's a controversial stance, but I think he's completely right about it. And progressives should be focusing more on economic issues. If you want to get into culture war things, abortion is a much better way to go. You're going to have 2/3 to 3/4 of the populace agreeing with you that Roe v. Wade never should have been overturned, and that the right wing is continually trying to take rights away from women. But I don't think the trans people in sports is something that progressives should really be engaging in, beyond just saying that it's silly and it's ridiculous and we have much more important things to be concerned about. So I think that's a real failing of Cenk Uygur in spending so much time on this. So I think Hasan is exactly right about that. Let me know what you think about this kind of recap from Hasan of what happened with him and Cenk Uygur, his uncle, on Thanksgiving. Do you think that there really is animosity there and that Cenk Uygur is jealous of Hasan somehow and Hasan is just lying about this? Again, I feel like I have to take Hasan's word for this, but let me know in the comments what you think about what Hasan had to say here in terms of Cenk Uygur and the tactics that he uses that maybe aren't as conducive to network TV as much as Hasan's tactics are. Let me know what you think about all of that in the comments. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. This is Chris on Culture. I will see you in the next video.